And welcome, friends, to the bright side. Pharmacist Ben here. Thank you for being here. 844-236-6010 is our number. 844-236-6010. If you have questions, comments, success story, health challenges you or a loved one may be dealing with, we can help you. 844-236-6010 is our number. We've got a guest coming up at the bottom of the hour, and we'll take your calls in our next segment. Jack Kerfoot, the author of Fueling America, an Insider's Journey, is going to talk to us about renewable energy and climate change as well. Kerfoot is he's an author and a scientist, and he's been on various syndicated radio and television shows, spent 40 years traveling around the world talking to scientists and bureaucrats and ministers and sheiks and potentates, and he is the principal of J.L. Kerfoot and J.L. Kerfoot Energy Services. We'll talk to him at the bottom of the hour. Take your calls in our next segment. 844-236-6010 is our number. If you want to purchase longevity products, you can call 866-735-2470, or even better, if you want to sign up to join the Brightside Ben team, start a longevity business, be part of the billion-dollar healthcare, nutritional supplement business, trillion-dollar healthcare business. And got to tell you, the last month, longevity business has been blowing up. If you thought about it in the past, now is a golden opportunity for you to get in on the first floor, not the ground floor. The ground floor we're done with the ground floor, but you can get in on the first floor, and that's good too. You can call 866-735-2470 for more info, or click on the Join the Team link at brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, or criticalhealthnews.com. And don't forget to take a look at our Truth Skin Health products at truthtreatments.com and our Truth supplements at truthnourishment.com, truthtreatments.com and truthnourishment.com. All right, thanks for being here on the bright side. A couple of things I want to talk about that got my attention here. First of all, there's an article that came out yesterday in the journal Science Advances. I thought it was kind of interesting. High glucose levels may explain why some flu patients have more severe symptoms. And this is something I've been talking about since the whole thing started. If we have comorbid conditions, pre-existing comorbid conditions, we are going to be more susceptible to symptoms. Our job is to not be a vector, to not be something that the virus or any infection can spread to. And that comes from taking care of our health. That especially comes from taking care of our blood sugar levels, because when our blood sugar levels go up, our immune system and our inflammatory system also suffers. And, by the way, obesity is also associated with hospital admissions, according to this from Endocrinology Advisor. Obesity associated with hospital admission for COVID-19. All of this is to say that we have so much more control over how our bodies show up and how our bodies respond to contagions and infections than we have been told. We're told that we have to fight a war. We're told that we have to use drugs. We're told that we have to interact with the medical model. We're told that we have to do crazy lifestyle changes, like locking yourself in the house and not coming out of the house, or wearing masks. This is craziness. We have an immune system. We have an ability to deal with and to respond to contagion, infection, trauma, all kinds of stuff. The detoxification system in the body, and indeed in every cell of the body, is absolutely mind-blowingly powerful. The immune system is mind-blowingly powerful, and they're both intelligent. They both learn. The immune system, as well as the immune system, as well the detoxification system, as well as the immune system. Quercetin, EGCG, can reduce the risks of COVID-19 symptoms. Quercetin is a very powerful bioflavonoid. EGCG, likewise, EGCG is found in green tea. Quercetin is found all over throughout nature. Juicing every day. Juicing every day with onion juice and garlic juice and broccoli and spinach. Sprouts, broccoli sprouts. Sprouts are great in juices. These are powerful ways to build your immune system. These are things we should all be doing anyway. And in fact, if we're smart, we'll use this pandemic as an opportunity to figure out how to jack up our immune systems, to make our immune system strong, to make our body strong. This is an opportunity for us to change our life. This is an opportunity for us to change our health life. This is an opportunity for us to change the way we operate in society as well. This is crisis equals opportunity, and the bigger the crisis, the bigger the opportunity. And this, my friends, is a big crisis, which means it's a big opportunity. By the way, you should be drinking distilled, especially now. Drinking distilled water or clean, somehow some purified water. The last thing you want to be putting in your body when you're dealing with some kind of threat to the immune system or threat to the body is chlorine, and fluoride. Fluoride's a hideous substance. Chlorine, for that matter, too. But chlorine, you can make a case that you need the chlorine for cleaning out the water. Nonetheless, there's byproducts. There's byproducts associated with the interaction between chlorine and waste that's worse than the waste. That's a whole other story. One of the big problems with fluoride and chlorine in the water is displacement of other nutrients, specifically iodine, that really play a major role in health, especially in the health of the immune system, by the way. So chlorine and fluoride can wreak havoc on the body and on the immune system through several mechanisms. First of all, they're poisons. Second of all, they interact with waste to create more poisons. And third of all, they displace iodine from, especially under condition. They displace iodine, and if you're deficient in iodine, they'll replace iodine, which is a really big problem, which is why everybody should be supplementing with iodine. Iodoral, by the way, is the best way to get your iodine, or Lugol solution. Iodine was all the rage back when Fukushima was a big deal. That seems like quaint compared to what's going on today. But I haven't really heard a lot about iodine. Nonetheless, iodine is incredibly important, not just for the thyroid, which everybody knows about, but it's important for the adrenal glands, the body's stress glands. The more stress you're under, the more you need iodine. The more stress you're under, the more you need salt, by the way. In fact, if you are dealing with, if you're feeling stressed out, you're somehow not dealing as well as you might with all the stuff that's going on, you might want to consider doing a little bit of salt water in the morning. In fact, if you feel tired first thing in the morning, you might want to do a little bit of salt water in the morning. Celtic sea salt, just a tiny little bit. Some people do a lot, but just a tiny little bit. It's better to sip on it and find out where that sweet spot is, or where that salty spot is, where you had just enough salt. Celtic sea salt or Himalayan pink salt is also a good source of salt. And for that matter, you might try waking up every morning with a little bit of plant-derived minerals. Excuse me, a little bit of plant-derived minerals. Get a capful in some water, and then warm it up a little bit. It tastes like a great kind of cidery tea if you warm it up. And if you get the cherry flavor, it tastes pretty good too. All right, I'm Pharmacist Ben. 844-236-6010 is our number. Jack Kerfoot coming up at the bottom of the hour. You're listening to The Bright Side. We'll be back after this. On the bright side, I'm Pharmacist Ben. Thanks for being here. 844-236-6010 is our number. 844-236-6010. And if you want to purchase longevity products, go to brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, or criticalhealthnews.com. And our skin health products can be had at truthtreatments.com, truthtreatments.com. So I've been reading about this stuff called sucrosomial magnesium. Sucrosomial magnesium is the latest and greatest in the world of mineral nutrition, I suppose. Sucrosomes are phospholipids, basically, lecithin kinds of, lecithin sort of molecules. Lecithin, you guys probably, I talk about lecithin a lot. Most people don't realize how powerful lecithin granules are as a nutritional supplement. Number one, you get things from lecithin granules that are important for the brain, important for the nervous system. It's called phospholipids, and these phospholipids have a lot of really, really fascinating molecules. Lecithin is a source of phospholipids for brain health. And then lecithin also is important for helping the body process fats. And lecithin is used in the skincare business as part of something called liposomes. Liposomes are little bubbles made of lecithin, partially, usually, that penetrate through the surface of the skin, help ingredients, I should say, penetrate through the surface of the skin. And sucrosomes now are similar. Sucrosomes are phospholipids and a few other things. phospholipids and esters, which I use in my skincare business. When I'm formulating skin health products, I use phospholipids and esters. And both of these are important for helping support the absorption of certain things, particularly magnesium. Sucrosomial magnesium is a form of magnesium that's ideal for people who have gallbladder problems, or who have liver problems, or have any kind of fat absorption problems. And this is an underappreciated aspect of mineral nutrition, that some minerals require a fatty the fatty chemistry, the fatty digestive chemistry to be working correctly. This whole distinction between water-soluble and fat-soluble is really, really important, and nobody talks about that. In pharmacy, we talk about it a lot, but out there in the real world, you don't hear a lot of people making a distinction between water-soluble and fat-soluble, which is unfortunate, because this water-soluble, fat-soluble distinction plays a really important role in how things are absorbed into the body, how they're digested and utilized, and topically, how they get through the surface of the skin to where the living, viable cells are at the bottom, at the lower levels of the skin. So understanding this idea, this distinction, number one, of hydrophilic and lipophilic is really important. And then understanding that lipophilic or fat-soluble plays a role in calcium absorption, magnesium absorption, zinc, selenium, probably others too. This is why calcium has this, there's a lot of confusion around calcium because of this. Vitamin K is involved here too, by the way, which of course is a fatty vitamin. As far as magnesium goes, probably anywhere between 50 and 70% of Americans don't get enough magnesium. It's the number one mineral deficiency, which is very unfortunate because magnesium is involved in so many different things. Magnesium and zinc and calcium, between those three minerals, all handled by the fatty part of the body, between those three minerals or elements, you have probably 700-800 different chemical reactions, enzymatic reactions that they're responsible for. That means 700 things aren't going to be going on. Chemical reactions are not going to be proceeding as they should. Hundreds of different reactions are not going to be proceeding as they should if you don't have these three elements. And even if you take them, but you have a gallbladder removed, or you have problems with your gallbladder, problems with bile, problems with the intestine, you're going to have issues absorbing these really important nutrients. Calcium, and by the way, calcium and magnesium and zinc are also going to be affected by diuretics, by blood pressure drugs. Sorry about that. That was kind of interesting. They're going to be affected by drugs like diuretics. They're going to be affected by proton pump inhibitors. They're going to be affected by various other medications that you take specifically for your heart. You take a proton pump inhibitor, or not a proton pump inhibitor, but you take a calcium channel blocker, a diuretic for your heart. You're going to be affecting how well your body processes these important elements that are important for the heart. And a proton pump inhibitor, for that matter, is going to affect it as well. Pretty much any drug you take is going to affect nutrient absorption, which is why when you're on a prescription drug, you absolutely 100% want to get on a supplement program. If you are taking a prescription drug, you need a supplement program. People sometimes say, oh, is it going to interfere with my drugs? They'll make your drugs work better. They'll make you work better if you get on a supplement program. And particularly if you're on a diuretic and you're on any kind of medication for the cardiovascular system, diuretics, beta blockers, calcium channel blockers, particularly if you're on these kinds of drugs, you're going to be affecting the nutrients that are important for the heart that you're taking the drugs for, which is one of the great ironies in cardiovascular medicine. It's true about pretty much all drugs, but for heart drugs, it's always struck me as being very ironic that the nutrients that you need for your heart are specifically the ones that the heart drugs create problems with. So anyway, magnesium, really important for diabetics. It's important for folks who have Alzheimer's disease or who want to protect against Alzheimer's disease. It's got anti-cancer properties. Magnesium is also very important for the detoxification system as well. And of course, magnesium is very important along with calcium, for the bones. And this is why if you have any issues with fat absorption, fat malabsorption issues, pancreatic issues, gallbladder issues, liver issues, your bones are going to suffer, your connective tissue in general is going to suffer. And I can always tell if somebody has an issue that way by looking at their skin when they get older, because their skin is going to thin much more dramatically. That is, if you have a problem with fat malabsorption, or any issues with any of the fat-absorbing machinery like the gallbladder or the liver, or the intestine for that matter, if you have Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis, that can compromise fat absorption too. It's going to show up on your skin. And you're going to want a cream to make your fine lines and wrinkles go away, and the issue is not going to be a cream, it's going to be your gallbladder, or it's going to be your liver, or it's going to be fat absorption. And this is one of the great lessons that I learned in the world of skincare is it's about the inside first when you're talking about the skin, like when you're talking about any other organ. It's about the inside first. So if you're dealing with a gallbladder problem, by the way, ox bile, lecithin granules, the amino acid taurine, Taurine, the amino acid glycine, Glycine, pancreatin enzymes, your ultimate enzymes from longevity, and there's a very important relationship between the intestine and the gallbladder. And there's a signaling system that's associated with bile, so don't forget your probiotics, your good bacteria, and your fermented food. The body's a system, folks. It all works together, and the digestive system is a microcosm of the entire body as a system. It all works together. The gallbladder works with the liver, works with the pancreas, works with the stomach, works with the intestine, and all the fluids are talking to each other. And it's really kind of interesting. It's kind of complicated, but it really doesn't take a lot of work. You work on the digestive system, you work on your blood sugar system, and you deal with stress management. All right. I'm Pharmacist Ben. Got Jack Kerfoot coming up in our next segment. We're going to talk about climate change and its impact on health. You're listening to The Bright Side. We'll be back after this. Okay, we're back on The Bright Side. Pharmacist Ben here, 844-236-6010 is our number. Oh, actually, we have a guest coming up, so scratch that. We're going to talk to Jack Kerfoot, who is the author of a book called Fueling America, An Insider's Journey. He's a scientist and an energy expert, and he's got a specialty in climate change and fossil fuels. Jack, welcome to The Bright Side.
Show today.
Yes, thank you for joining us. So, first of all, what qualifies you to, you say it's an insight, you call your book An Insider's Journey. So talk to us a little bit about your personal qualifications for understanding this topic. And then I want to talk a little bit about the impact on health, especially in this respiratory virus crazy time that we're in. So what is it about your background?
Well, actually, after I served in the U.S. Army in Vietnam, I returned and worked my way through university and earned degrees in geophysics and graduated in 1978, when at the time the U.S. was faced with a different energy crisis, and that was a shortage of fuel. There were oil embargoes, and the cost of oil was skyrocketing. So I went to work in the oil and gas industry, and that took me around the world, providing me the opportunity to work with scientists, bureaucrats, ministers, and even heads of state. And then in 2006, I had the opportunity to have dinner with T. Boone Pickens, who was in the oil and gas industry, but at that time was making a major move from fossil fuels into wind, particularly developing wind farms in Texas and the Great Plains states. Now, we had an excellent dinner discussing energy and renewable energy and the advantages of that, and that really started me to understand the importance of making the move to renewable energy. We can all understand pollution. We can see pollution in major cities like Houston or Los Angeles or even Denver. And I've lived over 10 years in Southeast Asia, so I've traveled extensively in places like China and India, where in the winter you can extend your hand and you can't even see the end of your hand because the inversion is so thick because of the smog that's created from coal and fossil fuel generation. So I called it, what I did in writing the book was tell about my career traveling around the world in the energy sector. And in the end of every one of my moves, which is every typically 2 or 3 years, I talk about what's going on in the U.S., why the U.S. initially started to push nuclear, and then why it's sort of plateaued and now has been on the decline, what drove the rise of coal, what drove the rise of oil and gas prices, and why the move to renewable energy. So that's really my career in a nutshell, and I wrote the book in 2018 and have been talking on radio shows and television shows for the last year and a half, 2 years.
What do you want people to know about climate change?
First of all, we have to realize that when we talk about science, whether it's medicine or geophysics or the climate, we're talking about developing models, and so there is uncertainty. But what we can do is measure unequivocal data or see results from unequivocal data. What we can say without any question is we see the ice caps reducing, so that's obviously indicating a warming of the Earth itself. The thing that concerns me even more, perhaps, or more, just period, is the increased water temperatures that we're seeing. That's going to impact the ecosystem and will potentially lead to extinction of certain species, which will immediately impact the food chain of other organisms in the ocean and potentially our food chain. So between the air quality, the warming of the atmosphere, this is a very serious issue we must address. Do we know all the details and the direct details of how it works and the interactions? Unfortunately not, just like we know very few things about the world in our science community today. We have theories, and we learn more every day as we go. But the evidence for climate change, for global warming, I think is compelling, and the impact on the relationship to climate change, I think, is also compelling as well.
Why are there skeptics? I mean, if it seems so obvious with, like you say, the ice caps melting and the water rising and the temperature going up, why are there skeptics?
Well, I think it's fair to recognize that change is difficult for people to understand, and we have to stand back and say we've got to remember that the fossil fuels basically improve the quality of life for the world. First, with coal as a way to heat, to move. We basically moved, if we think about it, first of all, from wood as a heating source and for a fueling source for very primitive forms of transportation, and then we started to move to things for lighting like whale oil, and then when oil was discovered in the 1880s, then there was the discovery of converting oil into something like kerosene, which is a far cheaper and more effective technique for lighting. And then we've moved into the development of gasoline and the use of natural gas. So it's made a significant improvement in the quality of life. And all of a sudden now we're telling people, not so fast, we need to move away from that very quickly. And change is difficult for many people to accept.
Will there be switching over to renewable resources, is that going to affect quality of life?
Well, actually, it will. Moving to renewable energy will impact quality of life, and it's all for the better. First of all, in a levelized study where we take out all tax credits, the cheapest form of power in the United States is actually onshore wind at about 5.2 cents per kilowatt hour, closely followed by solar, followed by hydro, and then natural gas. So from an economic standpoint, it is by far the cheapest form of power is renewable energy. Second of all, we will recognize moving to renewables, we won't have the greenhouse gas emissions. So there'll be an improvement in the air quality as well. The third factor is, from a strategic standpoint, sadly, our country hasn't had an energy policy since World War II. And this will allow us to be completely energy independent for the first time since 1950. In 1951, the U.S. became a net importer of oil, primarily because of the automobile. And the other factor that's going on as well is we are at the beginning of a boom for the move for what I call electrification of transportation, moving from combustion engine vehicles to electric vehicles.
Is anything that moves as a potential source of energy, like the ocean, waves and footsteps, and any kind of movement can be linked to or harness some amount of energy production, no?
Yeah, That's true. But the question is, which ones are the most effective and the most efficient, and what are the resources that we have? We have to recognize, if we look across this wonderful country of ours, the climate and renewable resources, let's say in the Pacific Northwest where I live, are very different than the Southeast. So in the Pacific Northwest, we have an abundance of wind. We have onshore and offshore. We also have in the eastern part of the state solar, and we also have geothermal potential and significant hydro as well. But if we move down to the Southeast, what you're going to find is an abundance of radiant heat, therefore solar, but not as much wind and not as much hydro potential as that area. So it depends on what part of the country you live in from that standpoint. But the next big wave in renewable energy right now going on in the United States is the development of offshore wind farms. Right now it's going on along the East Coast from Maine down to North Carolina. Offshore wind has been a major source of power in Europe over the last 20 years, and the reason offshore wind is important is the winds are more consistent and stronger offshore than they are onshore.
This is totally fascinating, Jack. I want to talk about the future. This is, we're in the future right now, but what the world will look like in the next 20 or 30 years in terms of how we get our energy. I'm Pharmacist Ben. You're listening to The Bright Side. Got Jack Kerfoot, author of Fueling America, an insider's journey, talking about climate change, and we'll be back in The Bright Side right after this. Okay, we're back on The Bright Side. I am Pharmacist Ben, talking to Jack Kerfoot, author of Fueling America, an insider's journey. We're talking about climate change. Jack, it strikes me that this is going to be kind of costly, no?
Well, and the actual factor is the answer to your question is it depends on how we implement it. In 2005, oil prices hit at $60 a barrel, so the U.S. passed a bipartisan bill called 2005 Energy Act that provided subsidies for nuclear, for oil and gas, and also for renewable energy. And those were tax credits in different forms or government loans that were provided. And the reason they did that is oil was projected to go higher, and it did. It actually went up to $100 a barrel. So what the government was trying to do was provide incentives to make our country more energy independent. At that time in 2005, over 51% of the power in the U.S. was from coal, and about 5 or 6% was from renewable energy, about 20% from nuclear, and then the rest was natural gas. Over this 15-year period of time, dramatic changes have happened. In April of last year, coal generated less than 22% and is on the decline, and renewable energy had passed coal at 23% and was trending upward in the demand. And nuclear was still holding steady about 18-19%, while natural gas filled a gap. So the end of the day, what we've actually seen is actually in some areas costs have actually gone down because, quite candidly, fossil fuels have gotten more expensive. Right now, coal is well over 3 times the cost of wind. The reason for that is what people have to understand is fossil fuels are not renewable, so there's a finite amount. The highest quality coal, there are 4 grades of coal. Highest quality of coal is anthracite. That's just been mined out completely around the world. The high quality coal means it takes less coal to generate more power. To generate more power. And the lower grade coals that we have, it takes more of that coal to generate the equivalent amount of power. So what's happened is, although the cheaper coals cost very little per ton, about $2.50 per ton, the cost to transport it now is now over $12 to $13 a ton. So that's driven up the cost of coal, and that's just simply the free market system that we have. The transportation of goods on the railroads, simply it's not cheap. It costs money to transport it. So now we've seen renewable energy continue to drop in price. Now, if we go out, and we have to recognize that utilities typically look at a power plant life of about 40 years for a coal plant or natural gas. So what they're looking at doing is staging when these plants reach end of life or the economic end of life, then they look at other sources, and then they go to their State Bureau utility board and apply for approval to develop a new center or a new power plant. And the utility boards always look at 2 factors. First of all, security security of the source, so security of the design of the power plant, and then 2, cost. And then 3, they look at other factors, such as the states may have certain factors relative to types of energy. So what we've actually seen is a very minor increase in some areas, but actually a decrease in other areas for the cost of energy. Hawaii, which used to import 99% of their power, which was fuel oil and coal, had power costs of over 40 cents per kilowatt hour, and that's dropped down over the last 10 years to about 30 cents per kilowatt hour. So at the end of the day, we're actually going to see the cost go down, and we'll see air quality improve.
How's the life of the average person going to be different when all of this stuff gets implemented?
Well, when it all gets implemented, the first thing they will notice, well, let me take a step back. Perhaps you may recall when the U.S. went from leaded gasoline to mandating that vehicles use unleaded gasoline. I was overseas at the time when this happened, and when I came back with the unleaded gasoline into a major city, I could smell the difference. And I think that you will find that the air quality will be significantly better. I think we'll find that the air quality with renewable energy will be probably what the air quality you're experiencing today with everyone at home because of the pandemic we have. I'm sure everyone has noticed the skies are clear and that the air quality is much better simply because we're not out driving vehicles that are emitting greenhouse gases, and the power plant demands are less than they were before.
What is the future of vehicles?
The future of the vehicles actually is electric, and it's electric for a lot of reasons because of new technology that's being developed. Tesla's batteries, EPA, the U.S. government standard that they measure is about 350 miles on a single charge. But now new batteries are coming out, I've been reading about, that are not necessarily lithium-ion, but are also different types of battery source that are getting up to 500 miles on a single charge. More importantly, the recharging time for a full recharge on these batteries is less than 5 minutes. So now we're talking about a car that will be able to drive around 500 miles and then pull into a fueling station, as they have in Europe, and basically plug in their car. In a few minutes, they will have a full charge and be able to drive away. And the cost for an electric vehicle is probably about 30 to 40% less per year than a combustion engine, not only because of the gasoline prices, but also an electric car only has about 18 movable parts and has far less components that are and less work to maintain.
Did I hear you say it's already happening in Europe?
The fueling stations are, that's what you're seeing in Europe, particularly in Germany, the Netherlands, the United Kingdom, and France. They will have both charging stations and the gasoline stations as well. And the major oil and gas companies, that's a misnomer, actually. They are really energy companies because over the last decade they've been moving significantly into other aspects of renewable energy, including developing and building offshore wind farms, charging stations, types of batteries, and refueling stations as well. For them, for the gas stations, it doesn't matter whether you plug in your car or whether you fill it with gasoline. They make 85 to 90% of their money at these stations from you going in and buying soft drinks and munchies. So the impact to them, it doesn't matter. But they see where the future is going, and there's billions of dollars invested across the world by a wide range of companies on electrification of transportation. Companies like Google and Apple, but also engineering firms as well as the oil and gas companies on the battery technology.
What do you see 30 years from now? How is the world going to be different?
Well, I think 30 years from now, I think what we're going to see in the United States is that we will be very close to 80% renewable energy across the U.S. with current technology. And with new technology, we could potentially achieve more. And I think we'll see the development of offshore wind farms. And I think that we will see a continued dramatic decline of coal. And our air quality will improve. And the contamination from coal, which does occur if the coal ash, which is the burning of the coal, gets into the ground, it basically causes a contaminant in the air, water quality. So water quality will improve, air quality will improve, we'll have cheaper, more efficient power, and we will be energy independent, and we'll be looking to achieve 100% renewable energy in the next decade.
Hey, do you have any take on 5G?
I'm still learning about 5G.
Okay.
As a scientist, my first reaction is I need to understand it before I can have an opinion.
Okay, that's totally fair. I've just been hearing a lot about 5G. So, anyway, that was very interesting stuff, Jack Kerfoot. I appreciate it. I love this idea of offshore wind farms. That seems so perfectly clean. Is there anything that's wrong with that?
Well, again, people are always concerned about change. The first thing that typically that you find is that the fishing industry raises concerns. The first offshore wind farm in the United States was in Rhode Island. It was developed in 2016. It was relatively small. It was in state waters. About 5 large wind turbines were put out there, and the fishing industry was concerned. And that's understandable. But a year later, there are strong advocates for the offshore wind turbines and wind farms because those wind turbines on the platforms are creating small little protective areas for the fish. So it's actually improving the fishing. And then, of course, you always have to look at the migration of different species, whether it's whale or other animals, to make sure that there's no negative impact from that. But before any wind farm goes out there, there are extensive studies, a wide range of marine species, but also birds as well. Even in the onshore area, we have to recognize before a wind farm is put out there, different organizations, Ottoman societies, are consulted relative to the migratory patterns. But now the wind turbines themselves are moving at a slower speed, and so really there's very little, if almost no threat at all to different types of birds.
Jack, we're out of time, buddy. Thank you so much. Jack Kerfoot, energy expert, author of Fueling American Insider's Journey. His blog is jackkerfoot.com. Thank you, Jack. Appreciate it. Very educational. That was Jack Kerfoot, and that was totally, totally fascinating. Wind farm, offshore wind farms. I love that concept. All right, that's it for now. Thanks for listening to The Bright Side. I'm Pharmacist Ben. Have a wonderful, beautiful, awesome, spectacular day. We will talk to y'all later. Bye for now.